everything is going on in. So here's the live stream browser. Yeah, so yeah, it has been a long time since I've done anything live, so there's obviously a few things that could go wrong. Let's see. Hopefully it works. And I have two screens, so that always makes it a little more fun. But obviously you can see me here. Come on, small, so I can have room for it. So yes, I hope you are watching. So my idea for this was I wanted to show how I would be developing any type of integrations and give you my input on these things. So I do get a lot of people that say, how can you teach me how to deal with different things? And I do have a lot of pre-recorded things in the CPI course, and there's also here in the YouTube channel. But I wanted to make it easier and give some more insight about what my thought process regarding these things. How do I do integration? So that's the idea. Hopefully, if you're joining here, ask some questions. Then that is the cool thing about making it live. And obviously, you should probably be scheduling it a little in advance, notifying people that I'm here, etc. But my main goal for today was actually to see if this session was possible, if I could create something that made sense. So, but yeah, if you're here, cool. Let me know in the comments if this is relevant, something you want to see more of. Then that would be pretty cool. And I guess if you can actually hear me, I guess that is a thing that I have not really checked. But it seems like the audio is working, as I can see it. Let me just check. It would be a shame if I had created a long list of videos and not being able to see anything. Oh, sounds good. Perfect. I'll just. No, don't be a good one. So, cool. Okay, so yes, the goal of today is to take a Jira request or use the Jira APIs to figure out how to interact with Jira using SAP Cloud Integration, figure out how that can be done, and once that is done, we want to connect that also to the FIGAF webhook. We are currently in the process of defining webhooks, so whenever you have done transport of artifacts, you will be able to see what is going on, and we want somehow to capture this and make it possible for users to see what is going on and figure out how to deal with these things. So that is the little longer aspects of this. But the idea here is to show you what is going on, how I'm creating integrations, and obviously if you here subscribe then you would see more of these videos. So that's pretty cool. So that's the agenda for today. So the first thing is we would look at the Jira aspect of this and understand what is possible. I just have a few windows I need to close. Had some PI sessions that timed out. Good. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Okay, so I did some preparation. I guess that is always what you need to do whenever you're dealing with integration. You need to understand what are the APIs that you're going to interact with and how does that all work out. So the first thing we want to do is we want to see, okay, if we need to connect to Jira, what is it that we need to do? How does the API work? And the first thing you obviously need is to go to the Jira API, find out how that works, what is included in it, what are the different aspects of it, and then from that on you can then start creating new integration. We do in Jira have the concept that is called issues, and that is if you create a new issue here, live video test. So now we have created a new issue. This is then issue number 2, demo 2. So the idea here is that we somehow want to understand what is going on with these artifacts, and then if we go to the Jira API, we can see here. So first off, the first thing you need to understand is the authentication process. How do you integrate with these? What are the different integration aspects or authentication methods? And here it says here we have a basic, auth, and OAuth. So you need to first understand the authentication process, what is going on. And here we can look at the basic auth. And obviously the problem with Jira is that they have a on-premise installation and they have a cloud installation, and you need to understand if this is the right one. I'm not really sure. So here we talked about the basic authentication, what are the requests that you need to make for working with this, and I guess this is probably the cloud version of it. And I think somewhere in between here, when I was going through some of the different codes, I found that on my user I can create an OAuth or a token that I can then use in these requests. Then once I've found that, the idea is then to go to, what's the index here, to find the specific APIs that works for this. And I think the main one would be the task or the issue here. The thing that's probably easiest in a lot of cases is to use the get. So if you have a request that already is there, use the get request and understand how that is working out. And then with that you can then go in and see all the different aspects, comments, etc. on that topic. So let's go back to our Postman. I think obviously Postman is really a useful tool in this aspect. So in my authentication, I have added my username. I have the OAuth token or whatever the token I've added as the password. And what I can then do is I can obviously go here and say to just get this, because there's no attributes on it. So if I press get here, I will then get the payload for this. We can see if the specific attribute to expand on the topic, what needs to be done. So we can see the task description here. What are the APIs? How can we access this issue correctly, etc. What are the APIs for it? So this is really a useful way to use the get to. Thanks for joining. Great to have you. So now we know we can call this. The next thing we want to know is, okay, can we update this? So can we move it from whatever status we have here? We have a to-do to move into progress. So if we just look at what are the different statuses here, so we have one here that it's called state. Status, it's called to do. Names to do. So that would be the ideal thing. So let's see here. Oh, I need to move it into progress. So now we have status. And the status here should then be status. The task needs to be done in progress. So we have the different types in here. And this, when you're working with this is obviously research. You want to experiment, figure out what these different values are, and there is a little challenge sometimes filling in. Then yes, this is about teaching CPI do click at cpicourse.com. There I have a full YouTube playlist about everything that needs to go into this. But this is about teaching some of the methodologies about how you're dealing with CPI. So stick around and maybe you'll see something that could be useful, or hopefully, I guess that's the idea with these sessions. So now at least we have the GET request here, and we can then try to do a POST request. And if I then look at the POST request, so I did create a few experiments. This was on the comments. And I think comments is a little easier. I think you just, if we go to the API here, issue, create comment, add comment. So if you look at the add comment, it is just about adding a comment afterwards. So if we just set comment, post, and then we have this type of document in here. And if we can then see, it has submitted that. And if we look at the reload the issue now, hopefully we got a comment. So we got a comment here, which is what we wanted. Obviously, yeah, we could probably customize some of the text in here. Let's see if we can do anything with the status and move that to done. So that's the comment. We can add that. Maybe let's try with doing that using our CPI process first. So what we need to do is we need to go back into our CPI system. We need to create a package for this. And obviously when dealing with this, you need to remember your naming conventions, how to deal with these different things. YouTube Live. And version number, save it. And now we can then go here and we can create a new iFlow here. Add integration flow. We will call it Jira integration. And we just say OK for this. So now we have created a new iFlow that we can start working on with this. We go into edit mode, and we want to see if we can update this also using the Jira API for this. Yeah, if questions, comments, put them into the chat. Be sure to subscribe. That really makes a lot of difference for me. So let's see any comments. Good. Okay. So first off is we need to create this a little larger. We will add a request reply here. Let's start with the other end here. So the easiest when you're just developing something like this is to use a start a timer, because then this message is then triggered once when you start up the application, and that makes it a lot easier to deal with. Then we will add a content modifier in here, and here we can then add the payload that we want to use for this. So this would be the payload CPI comment, and this is then a JSON body we just insert into here. It's a payload startup. So now we have a payload. We can then add a request reply. It is here. It's an external call. It's a request reply. We could also have added at the end, but I think sometimes it is easier to have it as a request reply in that process. Now we can select our method and this would then be HTTP. You don't really have a pretty print in in CPI world. Let me show you once we got it done. Please remind me if I forget to it. But if you are doing debugging, you can do pretty printing there using CPI helper. But in here and setting up payloads, you don't really need that per se, because it is not human readable. No human should actually be involved with this this content. Okay, so let's just connect it to the end here. What we can then do is we will put in our connection here, and the connection here we need to externalize that. So UL. So for the first iteration, I think maybe we'll just use the full API here. Now let's just use this Jira version 3 APIs. So that would be our base UL, so that means we can easily replace it. And then we would have options to set on the Jira here. So we can externalize part of the UL. It is a post we need to do here, and we are using basic authentication. So I need to add a basic authentication for this, and a way to do that, normally I just would go here and duplicate, and then I would need to go here. I would go here to the security material. I will create a new user credential. Dear Daniel, and this would then be, and I will just find my token from here, the Postman session, just a sec here. Show password. And we will insert it 2 times here, and we will deploy it. So now we have deployed this Jira UL here, and now hidden house password. It was called that. Let me just. It's called Jira Daniel or something like that. So Jira Daniel. We will add it here as externalized parameter. So I guess always use externalized parameters for something like this that you know will change in the landscape. Obviously you can handle it in different ways. Kieran, I understand what you're meaning, that you would love to be able to pretty print the scenario here and make sure that it flows correctly, and there's no real option to do that, which is a bit unfortunate. Yes, but use externalized parameters for these things. We can set specific headers, we can save as version. So now we have created the first version, so let's see if we deploy it. I have added CPI helper. That is really a helpful thing to do in this process. So we'll add the trace to make it easier to understand what's going on. So the first one failed with an operational error exception. So let's just try it again. We always know insanity is about trying multiple things multiple times, and obviously we do get a new or the same error. So anything I did not set here. So let's check it. Run persist, no persist steps. Boop. So we are getting a 400 code on this API. So I have not checked it here, and I guess this is normal whenever you're working with these things. So we could look at the trace. What are we actually sending here? So the body we will send is this one, and here you have the beautifying version to organize some of these things, but obviously that is just part of it. Headers, body, and yeah, getting this kind of an information is a little challenging, understanding how to deal with it, and what are the response coming out from it. So there's also sometimes easier to see these things in the real trace method, so we can see here what is going on here, the log content, their operation comment with status 400. Failed bad requests. So it seems like it pops up with some, or it responds with we need to log into a given resource, and I guess that is bad request. It didn't mention something about any ideas? So let's see here, didn't I set everything correctly? So we are doing this, we are connecting using basic authentication as we did in Postman. Request headers, let me see here, what do we else have in the Postman session? Headers. So we are sending application type JSON. Let's see if we can, if that's the problem. Unsupported media type, we'll get that. So let's set that as a part of our resources here. We'll set edit application type. So yes, that is part of what this is about, trying to find out how things work and if they work as expected, and how to get certain kind of errors when you're dealing with the integration. So let's see. We get a complete. So that was just the application status. So we did not really have any good idea on that. So let's see if we got something from the CPI now. Yes, so we got our CPI comment. So from CPI we can now trigger items into a Jira workbench, which is pretty nice to deal with these things. Should we see if we could also update the status, or should we connect it to our backend logic? Yeah. I think let's try also to do the call to the separate service, because it is two different endpoints. You may be able to call it in one endpoint and have one that covers both of these requests, but it could also be two that you need to work with. So let's try that. Let's see what we need to create to modify status or add a different subject to the ticket. Let's try to see if we can. So let's just say get here. I did have just a sec.
Du ligger ikke inde med den i voldsbatteri.
Måske er det derovre. Der er en computertast derovre. Yeah, just a sec, I'll be right there. Let's see how. Her.
forhåbentlig virker det. Du får det igen med det samme. Vi skal bruge det til at åbne en lås.
Okay. Good. Okay. Yes, we wanted to update the status of these things, so I guess that's what happened when you're doing live. We could add a content filter for this to simplify the way we would or filter or remove some of the content that is not needed. We probably would need to have some more data in that to be able to set that. The way I would do something like that, where I would update first a comment and then the other one, would be that I would add and obviously you need to remember where these things are located. I would add a multicast sequential to it. That would mean that it first call this comment and then we can add a new request. Yep, that's it. And then we need here to call again. External call, request reply. We obviously need to figure out how to deal with these things, and then we send it to the endpoint here. So what is it that we need to call in this URL? So let me see here. I did have some requests. I guess this would be some of the put requests here we had. And the body here we used was update summary, where you had an update option here. So we just take this one. And I guess let me just update 2 here. Nope. That was my description here that was a bit difficult. I don't know. Maybe it was most likely because it needed this this kind of a document format. So if we update it now, I think it should have updated updated remotely. So now we can change the title if we need to update the status of this. Status to do. Yeah, so status is done somewhere a little differently. So let's see here what the document says about it. Edit issue, notify users, update. Does it say anything about the status? This is a pretty crappy. Status code. Yeah, we don't want those kind of statuses. Get all statuses. Is that it? So that is just to get the different statuses that exist in the system. For a given project. But we don't on this issue type. Issue status. So let's see. That's obviously so he is trying to transition to with an integer on these things, and the idea here is to transition a given ID to a given status. So let's try that. So this is in a transition API or a endpoint. So let's try that. And just put in this content. Method not allowed. Put post. No content back, so let's see what our status did. Did it go to something else? Now it is in progress. So if we do use status 0, status 12, status 1. Okay. So obviously we need to figure out what other type of statuses we need, but I guess moving to status 1 or 11 would be sufficient for the purpose of showing what is going on here. Let's see if we can actually understand what the last one would be. What with the done. So if we get, just use the get here on this. Status can we actually get the transition? No. Okay. But we can call it with a transition. So obviously we should have researched and figure out what this other transition would be like. What we would then go is we will go here. We can then create a new receiver. Update it here. I think we should be able to copy. So we are here, and then we just add the transition. And it's still the same post, and then we just add this content modifier to show that it is being updated. Save as version. Didn't I copy these? So I guess it sees this as Groovy expression or something like that, and that's why it removes it. So let's try to set our issue back to do and go to here, deploy. Let's see how that would work out. So we are getting some errors here. Let's see. So I guess this was this request. And what are we getting here of errors? So we need to open the logs to find out what's going on. Request response header body. So we are getting a null for that transition detail. So yeah, this is not easy, and I guess that is how all the integrations work out normally. You don't really know. That's there. I guess we need to look at this one. Body transition 101. That did work. and we're still using JSON, so that one should not be changed. But now we are getting the same error here. Is it because it is in a different status? Or did I make a modification to the transition? Ah, this is get. Hey, Mexico, nice. That is early. So something's wrong here. Both on our requests. So obviously the CPI command worked, but the transition now does not work anymore. Let's see here, we had on our first request with the transition, I guess must be this one. So that worked. So now that is in progress. Let's move it back to stop. And so what happened? Was it the UL here? Transitions? Ah. Yeah, that is not really optimal here. So save as version and deploy. So let's see. What time is it in Mexico? Must be way too early. So now it worked, and that means that our Jira ID is now also updated to in progress. Nice, thanks. So yes, we got the first part of this quest working, which is always nice. Any questions for now? So yeah, I will always work on that, figure out how to actually call the API first from my third-party system before I started developing any of these new requests. So the next thing we want to understand is, so I got this small little utility which is called the FIGAF tool, and I hope you will see that also as something that is pretty cool. In some of the other shows probably will go a little more into details on some of the things that it's able to do, but yeah, it's testing, it's governance, all the things that you need for developing with SAP integration. So what I wanted to show is these webhooks that we got from our newest development. So I did record some of the webhooks that we're doing when we were developing these functionalities. And what we then have here is we have a number of different statuses that is being sent each time you would import or change or make modifications to an artifact. And I cannot do that because this is on our development release at the moment. So what we do have here is we can see these payloads. We have it both persisted as a JSON and a XML. So let's take the JSON here format. So here we have the JSON format, and what I want to do is right now we are calling this in our flow here, we are calling the set payload that does these different things, and we want to not do that. We want to get the data from this webhook. So what we will do is we will delete this one. We will create a start message where we will get an HTTP port on, and this one we will call we don't like this one. We'll call this FIGAF Jira, we will, so this is coming in as JSON. So the first thing is, I sometimes would like to persist the message to understand what is going on, what I'm receiving, especially if it is some third-party systems that I don't really have too much understanding of what I'm doing. So I will just put in a persist step here. It should be this one. And yeah, here we get to the formatting where you would then need to move some of these objects. So persist persist original org message store encrypted. We don't care about that. We can start. We can do a content converter. This is JSON, so we want to move it into XML format. We can do it like this, and let's see here what we do have here in this this JSON format. So I will save this as a version, deploy it, and then I want to find a call to the same CPI system here. We've got one here. Let's check this works. Yes, so this works, which means we can then use this as our starting point, because we want to have the authentication part processed here. So let me just get the info. That's a bit strange. Okay, we can also get it here. Figure webhook. Put it in here. Oh. That's strange. Okay, let's see if we can call it. So now we called it. We can see we are at least getting some data in here, which is good, but we are not really sending any useful data into it. Let's get this Jira here. We can set this as JSON here, and I think here you have a beautify also. It's JSON beautify. Technical transport ID. We do have a ticket that is involved here. Webhook ticket. We don't. Status in transport. So we have the external ticket ID here. This is in the FIGAF tool. When we are doing transport, we would add the external webhook ID here, and this would then always be this ID up here we have. So this one would go in here, and the UL, if you want that, will go up here. For this request, we get this as a status and transported. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get this external ID here, so we can update the right item with this data. And to do that, we will go in here. We have our JSON XML, which means we could use XPath in here. So I guess we'll be using this one still. That's okay. So in an Exchange property, we'll create a new one here that's called external ID, Jira ID. This is an XPath, and here we can select it as, and then we need to type in the Java lang string to understand what this is. Any questions along the way? So right now we have added exchange properties as a Jira ID, which means we will also go and do that in our here. Property. Jira ID. Oh, I hope that is correct. So let's see. So now we have added this. We should find this exchange property up here and convert it, fetch the data, and then we should be able to work with it. So let's save as version and deploy. Let's see. And let's just change this back to do. I have not worked with the intermediate message events, but I guess that should be possible. So let's see here, no content. That I guess is fine. So let's see here in the CPI here, we get it. It seems like it has called these one, and if we look here, we get 19 seconds updated ago. So there is a number of different ways. So obviously we could have filled in this this payload all by ourselves. All of these different values, but you would also be able to, let's say we want to get, so the one way would be to create an XSLT where you would have all of the different fields in. Since we are only going to fill in a specific text for this, it may be easier just to create an XPath that finds the value that is interesting for us. And I guess this could be that the transport is created for this ID. So we can get the transport created and the transport ID. Transport created, we'll get it as XPath. And we will also get the transport ID. That main way we in the FIGAF tool would have a way to connect to this specific ID. So let's see here, then in our message body here, we will then be able to use this. So we could use these groovy expression or simple expression. Property. So this is by far the easiest approach to deal with these things. Save as version. So with this, we're able to extract the data that is coming in from these scenarios, and then we can say deploy. Deployed. An error occurred. That's probably okay because that's probably the transition that we worked on. So now we can see we are getting this data from our original payload. So if we connected this correctly, we will be able to update notifications about these things, and we could probably add links back to the FIGAF tool so people would be able to see what is going on with these things. Yeah, and obviously you would need some more specific details about how this could work. What would be the events that could happen in such a scenario. I do hope that this is something that you're looking for these things. To give you an idea about how to code, what would my process be to work on these things. Yeah, and then I guess for the transitions, there's probably a way you can find the number of the list of the different transitions. Oh. Get transitions. So if we just say get transitions, query parameter ID, get a list of the by the current user along with their, okay, so transition ID. So here you got the different Jira statuses that you may be able to call with these things. But yeah, that would be, I guess, something else, and then you would probably add some kind of a value mapping or a transition mapping. You probably would be checking if these things would occur, how to deal with these things. But yeah, I hope it has been useful and you enjoyed it. So yes, that was what I wanted to cover in today's session. Any questions? Anything you'd like to see? Ping me or drop me a note somewhere. Then we may cover some of those other topics. But yeah, thanks for joining today's first stream in this. Hopefully I get to create a few more of these, and obviously be sure to subscribe. And if you've stayed so long, thanks for joining. It's been a pleasure. Bye.